Welcome to Timber&Terra. I'm Glenn. And in this video I want to try to make this pile bigger. Well, not literally, because I'm not going to actually deliver the material to this location quite yet, I don't think. So this project started actually almost a year ago, cutting pasture spruce for my own use for some floor joists that I'm going to hand pick out to make sure that they're going to be rugged enough, without big knots being a problem for their strength. I've got the 2,000 board feet of 16 footers that I need, but I need about 1,500 feet more of these, which are 10 footers. This one there is actually a large cherry log that I'm going to have sawn, but not part of this particular project. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back into the woods. I've identified several locations where there is some spruce for me to cut down. They will all be 10 foot, so this pile should increase quickly, because I had been concentrating on getting the 16 footers first, and that's done. So before we head out there, I will do a quick review of the map as far as where we are going to be working, where I'm going to get this from. I'm going to skid them out and leave them just on the edge of the woods in the field, which will be way back there, just because I don't want to spend the time dragging them individually back here or individually by twitch. I'm just going to make a pile out there and then get them with my log loading trailer, which is much more efficient for that. So let's look at the map real quick and head out and start cutting some, hopefully, big trees.
So where that log pile is right here. So I am going to be cutting along this road here. I think mostly from like here to here. And here are several these pasture spruce that I've identified. There are also a couple others closer to this upper road here. You'll see we're sort of in a little bit of a valley. Right here is a stream that feeds this pond here, and right across here is that ford that if you've seen other videos of mine, you see me drive across the water. It's a ford. So the plan is to drag these logs out, and I think I have a small pile here started already, but anyhow, anywhere out here is where I plan to stockpile them.
Well, here we are on this one of the lower parts of my property. This particular road is particularly wet because it's very low. Even though we've had this tremendously cold weather, I drive here and I easily break through what is just soft, muddy ground. In fact, I stepped over here into a little puddle. And I've been over this road several times with snowmobiles, sort of packing it down, trying to freeze it in. So it is in much better shape than a normal winter, or at least normal for the last several years. So that's why I want to take advantage of this opportunity where I can come in here with it relatively frozen and take out some of these pasture spruce. And there's a couple others that I may take out as well while I have access down here during this winter time. So I have identified some pasture spruce, and most of them are white spruce. Red spruce doesn't really tend to grow those big branches. Even though I've marked some of them out, I may not take them down. For instance, I marked this just because it was a white spruce. But I noticed, you see that blue paint? Back when I had the commercial cutting done about 12 years ago, this was marked to be cut. For whatever reason, the logger missed it, didn't take it down. And this is one of those that it may be acceptable. It probably would be acceptable, particularly since it was marked for removal. It was probably a commercially viable log. So I may leave this. It's still healthy. It's not that big. And the branches are not nearly as ugly as some of the other spruce that I have. Here's another white spruce. Again, the branches are much smaller. This one here I marked. This is actually a balsam fir. It's a rather large tree, but you can see it has some indications that it's probably rotten. Normally when you see woodpecker marks, it means insects. Insects often mean the tree has started to deteriorate. And you can look up there, the crown's not that bad, so I'm guessing at some point up there it's going to be sound wood. But probably the lifespan of this tree is just about at its end, so I might as well take it down and sell it for saw logs while it's still viable. So as far as the property between us, and you can see the land go up a little bit there, there's a little brook here. For the most part it's perennial. On a real dry summer it may stop running, but that's the little brook that feeds down that way, the pond and that ford that I often drive over to get to that section of my property. So over there also is where the Corduroy Road project was. So between us and that other road is this brook, and really the only access over there is over that ford, because trying to go anywhere across here would be nearly impossible. It's just so wet and swampy. And I could do it in the wintertime, I suppose, but to have any sort of permanent access without either violating wetland rules or getting permits, which I'm sure would be impossible to get, the easiest access is what I have now. So to get over there, I have to go way around there, across that ford, and then back that way, and that's fine. So what I started doing here before I started filming here, this was one of these pasture spruce. It wasn't that bad. In fact, I think it was a red spruce, but it died. It uprooted. It broke off. It didn't uproot. I take that back. This other one, this red spruce here, uprooted partially. This was the spruce that I just cut up. It was sort of hanging up in that, actually sort of mostly hanging up on its branches, not in the tree. And I just cut it up and let it fall to the ground. This one here, I think, was still alive when it uprooted. It's not big enough for the project that I want, because I'm looking for timbers that are 3-inch wide by 7 inches deep. This probably will not be big enough to provide, say, more than one of those members. So as long as it meets that 5-inch diameter, I'll take one, maybe two saw logs out of that and drag that out. But that one is caught up in that white cedars. So hopefully I'll cut that off and leave the fall down, or I'll just drag it out or drag it down with my cable on the winch. Well, that was a little bit of a bust. And this is a small log. It's probably breast height. That might have been 8 inches. But the punkiness never cleared up. The center of it actually wasn't too bad, but you can see here the rim of darker, sort of rougher looking grain. That was all raw. It's punky, and it stayed that way the whole way up until it got too small to even worry about for any kind of a saw log. So it's just all cut up and laying there on the forest floor. So a couple of things to consider here. One is the tree is leaning that way, so actually the hardest lean is that way, sort of towards my tractor. So I moved my tractor a ways away, but I think it's unlikely it would hit it and have a lot of interference to try to hit the tractor with any potential for damage. But it is leaning this way as well. So what I chose for an opening is between that fir tree there and that spruce tree there. It's going to land on those cedar, which have already uprooted themselves, so bit of a mess to clean up, but I got to clean it up anyhow. I got the notch already cut. It looks like pretty sound wood, so I'm hopeful that I'll get some good material out of it. But the first thing is to get it down. The other consideration, you can probably see up there, is the wind. So the wind is coming from the south, which means it's going that way. So that will, it actually would favor the tree felling right there towards my tractor, but as long as the hinge stays intact, the wind should help blow it that way as well, across the road where it needs to be. Now down here, sort of in the valley, we don't feel much of the wind. It's actually comfortable working, but the treetops there are swaying pretty hard. And all right, let's get this guy down and see what it looks like. Well, here it sits. I really was hoping that that would finish taking down these cedar trees, but it did not. So I have a couple choices. One is I could cut the logs off there and drag this off with the tractor. In fact, now that I'm sort of talking it out to you guys, I may do that. My first thought was to cut these at the butt, but that's still going to leave them hung up there. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut the first log off there. That the second log will probably drop to the ground, but that'll give me room to drive by with my tractor, hook it up with a cable, and hopefully drag this out, and maybe that will cause these cedars to fall to the ground. So this top, which would be the fourth log, is not going to make a log. Probably it's not going to be the 5 inches of the top, plus it has this weird branch. It's a bit crooked, so I'm just going to cut this up and leave it right there on the floor, which is why I didn't pull it all the way out. I'll just have to throw it back out of the road. But boy, turned out nice. There was some discoloration here, but it didn't really appear to be that punky. It might be a little bit softer, but I think it's more discoloration than it was anything else. The top part of this log looks fine. It's a little bit hidden there now, but I'll show you afterwards. So I'll clean this up, turn the tractor around again, because I want to head out that way. The road that way is much easier. Plus, I already have a pile started of saw logs to sell, rather than going out that way, which is the way I came in. So that worked out fine. I'll leave that cleanup for another day. And I still need to contact my local cedar fence guy to see what he's buying for cedar nowadays. So I haven't done that yet because some of those I could probably sell, assuming he has the same specs and buying the same things he has in previous years. Since it's cedar fencing, it's pretty small material. I think they take down to a 3-inch diameter, 10 foot long, which is a good outlet for some of the smaller cedar, but it's a lot of handling for not a lot of dollars, because each of those pieces is probably, $5 each. It's turned out to be a nice log. I may take this back and count the rings. Like everything else here, I'm guessing it's 60, maybe 65 years old. It's an even age stand, which is part of what the management plan is trying to do, is to take this even age stand and turn it into an uneven aged stand. So my primary purpose here is to salvage or harvest some of these pasture spruce, which are non-commercial trees. You're not going to be able to sell them to a sawmill. I do have, I think, a playlist of pasture spruce that I've harvested, mostly last spring. I think I did one video this year, prepping for winter, which I took down, I think, 1, maybe 2. So some other ones that I've identified, as I pointed out before, that one there with the blue mark on it. I gotta ponder this a bit, because I have a lot more uglier ones down that way. This one here, I think, is a couple uglier ones that are clearly pasture spruce, plus it has those cankers, those growths, which are probably not the best, as far as the best grade that a sawmill would accept. But some of these, even though there's numerous branches, they're really not that big. They're not as ugly as some of them. And then there's one back there which I think also has some cankers on it. Maybe not. Maybe that's just an adjacent tree growing around a branch. But this one here, the branches are larger, particularly up there. It's next to another white spruce, I believe, which the branches don't look as big, so I can take this one down. Maybe this one will take off a bit more. And there's that one over there. Gosh, there's just so many of them. Choices. Okay, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to do. I'll prep to fell the tree, and then we'll come back. So this is the tree we just cut. And the other one I decided to take down is this spruce right behind it. I think it's pretty straightforward. Be able to use the wind again a little bit to my advantage, just blowing that way. I'm going to fell it just that way, so it'll sort of go crossways with the wind and a little bit in the direction that the wind is blowing. Fell it uphill and easily drag it into the road, either over there or over here, depending on how it lands. Well, at first glance, this tree does not look good at all. It is very punky. You can see the reddish, rough look of this. The very outside, where it's still alive, pretty sound, but the center. So I hope it clears up. I mean, it's a decent looking tree. Even if we can salvage a couple 10-foot logs, it'll be good. Otherwise, it'll be a lot of organic matter for the forest. Well, that was a bust. You can see here all these cross sections, that punkiness never went away until I got to the top where the branches were still alive and it was too small to be of any use for lumber. The top of that tree was almost to the next road up there, which is just over the crest of that hill. So there's a spruce there that I'll probably take down, but if I do, it'll be from that road, not down here. So the next one, I think, will be this one here next to the road. That one I'll take first because I want to take this one here is the one I mentioned earlier of the two and leave that one. So take this one down because it might clear a spot for me to drag this other one out. The trick is always, well, which direction do I fall it? Because with these spruce and their larger branches, they do tend to do a fair amount of damage on the way down. So I have to pick and choose what things I want to sacrifice. Looking at the lean, it looks more or less straight up and down. There's not any obvious lean that I can see. The more open area is that away, which is opposite the direction of the wind. Willing to give it a try, so let me evaluate it, see which way I want to fell it. Assuming that's a fairly sound stump, unlike the other one, the hinge and the wedges probably will work well enough to go against the wind. If not, then I can always use the winch to help it over. Well, after further consideration, that looks like a sort of an open spot there. So that's going to sort of be crossways to the wind. It might be a little bit in the wind's favor, but I'm not going to try to do it that way. That would be completely against the wind. Right now the wind doesn't seem to be quite as blustery as it was earlier. So I've cut the hinge, or cut the notch. The wood looks a lot sounder, so a lot more promise for this tree. One, for usable lumber. The other is for a strong hinge, so that I can control the direction it goes, which would hopefully be that way. Might damage that sort of awkwardly growing cedar tree there, but that's okay. Well, it turned out to be a really nice log. Sound all the way up as far as I can tell. I had a couple casualties. One is my Spencer tape that broke just from sort of fatigue, bent over and over again in the same spot. I do have a spare tape, I just have to install it back at the house. The other casualty was that cedar that I thought might be damaged, and we'll look at that here in a bit closer. So I got 3 10-foot logs. I could have got more, except I'm looking for 3 by 7. So right here, I didn't measure it, but I'm guessing here might be 8-9 inches in diameter. So, and I can have a little bit of weight. It doesn't have to be a perfectly rectangle cross section, but from there all the way up here, just going to cut it into sections. It's not really good for anything else, so we'll just stay here. So that is the cedar. So a branch hit the top and broke it off on the way down. Again, I'm almost up to my other road, which is just basically beyond that crest. So I'm going to cut it up here where my last hatchet mark was. Since I didn't have my Spencer tape, I didn't do my normal procedure. So I just used my hatchet to mark the 10'6" log lengths. So I'll cut it right here, so that'll be about 33 feet. I should be able to pull it out as a single stem that way. If not, I'll cut it into 2 pieces. And then cut it when I get into the field where I'm going to sort of collect them. So my plan had been just to bring these out and stage them in the field back there. But since I was coming to the house anyhow, to replace my logging tape, figured I'd just bring them. I scaled them up. There's about 85 board feet between the 3 of them. I'm looking for 1,800 total. I have about 500 in that pile. And I think I mentioned I have 2,000 board feet of 16-footers. So we'll do some repairs and see if we can't take down another tree or 2. Well, it is a new day. I'm dressed different. It's a cold day. I got 3 or 4 inches of snow last night. Weather turned significantly. It was in the 30s yesterday. It's in the mid-teens and dropping. It's supposed to be like 5 degrees Fahrenheit before dark tonight. So I thought I'd try to do as much as I can here earlier in the day. So I did fix my my Spencer logging tape. Difficult, well, it makes it more difficult, not as convenient to do this work without that tape. You have to use the regular carpenter's tape measure. It's just not as convenient. So we had been working down there. I was looking at some of those trees that we discussed yesterday. I've decided not to take some of those. They're really not that bad. They're similar to that white spruce there, with at least the bottom, the branches are not that bad. I may consider that one because you get near the top, the branches are much more numerous and much larger. Initially I had passed this one by because I looked at the other side, which similar to the tree we just looked at, was sparse branches. The ones that are there are small. This evidently grew against something else. It might have been the cedar where the branches didn't have sunlight, so they just never developed. They died quickly and fell off. But on this side you can see there's quite a few large branches, and it has a crook probably about 25 feet up, 20 feet up. So it's not the best log. So I decided to take that down, but this other which I think might be a red spruce, is in its way. It has sort of an odd looking top, So I knew I'd fall it into one of these trees. That's a yellow birch. The big one here, I'm going to fall in the same direction. But it'll likely hit either, that's an old sort of a wolf tree, a red maple, or that yellow birch as well. But I think I'll get a 16-foot log out of this. I'm guessing it's going to be at least at 5 inches at the top. So we'll pull it down and see what we have and go from there. So we did get a nice 16-foot log out of that. The rest of it's just cut up. So my plan is I've got the wedge cut. It's beautiful looking wood. Hopefully the tip of the tree goes to the left of that wolf tree, which I'm pretty sure is a big red maple, and to the right of that smaller fir tree, which has that tiny little triangle top up there. That's a small target for me to hit, but there's really no damage it can do. If it hits the red maple, if it takes down the fir tree, not the end of the world. But we're all ready to go. Let's see what happens. Well, what was a nice small triangle of branches up there is no longer. Now it looks like a telephone pole. I guess I achieved my goal. It looks like it wove itself into another tree to the left, just beyond. So I'm guessing when I pick the butt of this up, it's going to want to swing that way, which is fine. I have plenty of room over there. May hit that stump. So that's what I'll do, is I'll hook the cable up and try to drag it down so it's basically on the ground. So to get the rest of that, what I'll probably end up doing is when I'll limit as much as I can. Cut the first 60, or actually these are going to be 10 foot, excuse me. These are from my Pasture Spruce 10 foot. So I'll cut one, maybe two 10-foot logs. Then I should be able to drag the top out closer to here and limb that up as well. So that angle is a bit too much. If I kept pulling hard, it actually tipped the tractor over. I got that wheel off the ground a little bit. So yeah, that's hanging up pretty good. I'm just going to reposition my tractor so it's more straight on. If that doesn't pull it out, then I'll probably have to go to the top of the tree and cut something off that's hanging it up. So the length of this worked out well. So 2 logs is 21 feet. And that 21 feet's right here, just before that crook. So rather than have that crook in the log, which is going to reduce the lumber I can get out of it, I'll probably start again right here where that it's probably started to grow a double top, and then this one died. It's generally what makes this little offset happen. So I'll just cut it here. This will be waste. Then I have relatively straight log from here on out to make more 10-footers. Alright, so I've finished cutting that tree up. I'm pretty sure there's three 10-foot logs there in addition to these two, so 5. That's more than 50 feet worth of a good log. For me, it may not be a commercial log. You know, I do see a little bit of punkiness there, but that should clear up quickly because the rest of the log was pretty sad because that's all snow covered. So my plan here is, instead of bringing these other ones up and cutting them, I'm gonna take that one out as a 30-foot length. These two, I might be able to get that 16-footer and then drag them out. My concern with this particular road is with my trailer, my log loading trailer. I'm not sure I'll be able to make it through, not so much through, but up at the both ends of this. Since this is sort of a lowland, I have to go up a rather steep incline. And with that trailer loaded with these, I'm not sure that I'd have the traction for that. So that's why I'm choosing to drag these out, because I can easily drag these out without the weight of the trailer and a bunch of other logs on it, and then pick them up in the field. So I'll turn the tractor around and see if we can finagle that 30-footer out, making the right-hand turn that way. It's always fun to see when you hook these up to be skidded out, what they're going to do and what's going to get hung up. So we'll see what this does. Always fun. Well, that actually wasn't bad. So this one here is dead, you can see, so this would be perfect as a bumper tree. If I didn't have that, then this would scrape off the bark of that cedar. And the cedar's not the greatest, but if nothing else, I guess it's a good seed tree. So I'll limb these off here that were sort of buried in the snow, and then we'll see how it does at making this corner. So when I was cutting those branches off, I noticed that that last 10-foot log was not really big enough. It was only like 6 or 7 inches on the end. A little bit crook in it. And since I'm looking for 3x7 timbers, even though I can allow a little bit of wane on the corners, that might not be quite enough. So now it's only a 21-foot log, so it should make the corner with no problem. It may hit that stump. It may roll over it. We'll see. So this is our next tree. Before we talk about that, I did want to do a quick mention here about the silviculture. So this is in stand number 1, if you happen to look at the management plan a video or two back. So this is spruce fir, and the treatment plan here, this was part of the commercial cutting I had done 12 years ago, was patch cuts. So this was all even age stand, all trees at the time probably 60 years old or so. And a patch cut is basically this tiny little area of clear cut. It's laid out in the management plan rather specifically, but they're taking an area like this. I think they specify 5 to 6 of these per acre, where they take down 3 or 4 trees in an area to sort of open up the canopy. And what happens is all these spruce, fir, these are all fir. There might be a spruce mixed in, but ideally it's spruce. But anyhow, so these trees will start to grow in. You know, once they have the light, the seeds will germinate and they'll grow, and they'll grow well. You can see the tops of these all have probably 8 to 12 inches of growth per year. And so that's what's happening. But anyhow, back to this tree. When I go down to the road, I'll show you, but there's a significant crook in the tree up there. So this tree is leaning rather hard as we look at it now to the right. So I don't really have much of a choice but to fell it that way, because it's too big of a tree, it's too much of a lean for me to overcome. So what that means is I'm going to have to fall it into some of those saplings. But that's not the end of the world. There's plenty of them there. So my plan is there's sort of an opening there. You can see a larger spruce tree there. The tip of this tree might touch that. If it does, it's not going to do any damage. I think the only significant damage is going to be a couple of these right here in this path. Even these taller poles to the left and right, I think will be shaken up a bit, but most likely not be damaged. A lot of branches up there. So here we are from the road. You can probably see that crook right there in the middle of the tree. It goes to the right and then back. So probably half of that tree length is really not going to be useful. So it'll fall here to the right. The crown of it should end up in the road, basically halfway between where we are and where the tractor is. It wasn't too bad. I don't think it did any damage up there. Probably took out maybe a half a dozen trees there, but not bad. It's a jungle. It takes forever to limb these things up. They're just so big, they're so numerous. But this is a fast-growing tree in its early years. I don't know how well it'll focus this close up, but from here on out, I can't even see growth rings in there, but I'm guessing there's probably 20 years there. There's probably 30 years there. Like all the trees that I've cut, 50 to 60 years old, maybe 65. A little bit of butt rot here, it looks like, a little punkiness. So I'll clip this back, see if I can get rid of most of that before I start measuring out logs. even though I cut most of the crook off, the really crooked stuff was near the top, and that's basically all here and across the road right there. But you can see here, it's still pretty crooked. It's got that big crook in it right over there. But, well, I'll just deduct a little bit. I'll just deduct a little bit from the footage. We're not going to get much from that. I think my mark here for the 10-foot log should be right there. So yeah, this log here is a little dicey. The other thing I noticed is it looks like the bark is twisted a bit. So you can see it's almost like a spiral, like a candy cane. So this may not be the best lumber, but it doesn't really cost that much to have it sawn up, and worst case is I have a lot of 3x7 firewood. Boy, it's not bad working in the woods, but you get out here, the blowing snow, particularly with the snow coming off the tires, going through the fields, blowing in your face at, I don't know what it is now, maybe 10, 12 degrees Fahrenheit. It's kind of cold. So I did tally up what we've cut so far. So we went from 300 board feet, added another 375 to that for a total of 675. Board feet, looking for 1,800. So we're making progress. I appreciate you hanging along for this one. I'm not sure if the next video will be another Pasture Spruce or another silviculture video working in the cedar stand, but it'll be probably one of those two. The other thing, I have a road to build up in my woodlot, which is about a mile up the road. I haven't touched that this year, which I really want to do. So lots more fun and excitement to come. Hope you stay tuned. Thank you.